Well, thank you for joining me. Everybody, we're here for another episode of the Aviation Growth Podcast. And joining me, I have Gunther Schindl from ASQS. Maybe we could start with just a little bit of an intro into who you are, maybe a little bit of a background on the company. And we want to talk a little bit about safety management today. So maybe we could start there.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Greg. First of all, thanks for having me today.
Yep.
It's a great pleasure to be here. To my person, it's so I'm the CEO and co-founder of ASQS. ASQS stands for Advanced Safety and Quality Solutions. So my background is I started to work in the airline industry. So I was 5 years in the quality department of a regional operator. Back then we had about 65 aircraft.
Okay.
And actually it was my first time I was related with IT development, because my boss back then asked me if I can program. I said, yeah, of course, sure. Couldn't, but well, he didn't know that. And he actually asked me if I can develop a simple tool for quality management. So basically preparing audits from the regulations, selecting the questions, running all the audit process. So that was for my company, for Tyrolean Airways back then. Then 2005, I changed to a pretty large VIP operator out of Luxembourg, so a small country in Europe. So they had 2 AOCs, one in Austria, one in Luxembourg, and I was nominated there to become the group quality manager, compliance management director. I learned a lot of things about the business aviation there.
Okay.
Doing all the internal and external audits. And then when 2007, 2008 in Europe, there were the first talks about safety management system. We had the internal discussion. We knew we will need a software application for that. The products on the market, first of all, they were extremely expensive back then. So my CEO said, no,
Okay.
look for something else. And that's when the idea came up that we start developing our own application. So we created ASQS in 2009, back then still in Luxembourg. Very small. So we are 3 partners in the company, but one of a friend of mine started with all the development. I did basically all the rest at the beginning, sales, support, accounting, whatever it takes to run a company.
Sure.
We got the first small customers, small business jet operators. So for the first 3 years, just the 2 of us. I was still parallel to that the quality manager of my ex company of Global Jet. And then really when we got the first airline customers, that's when the company really took off. So today we operate out of 3 offices. So we moved our headquarters to still in Europe, in Vienna, Austria.
Okay.
Since 2017, we operate an office in Bangkok for the Asia Pacific region. And since last year, we have an office in Calgary to support the North and Latin American market.
Very cool. And so, we're down here in Florida. You came in for a quick visit, but before stopping here, I think you were in Atlanta for
Correct,
an
yes.
event. What was that event all about? What's happening in the world of? I think it was the Air Safety Summit.
Exactly, it was the Air Safety Summit organized by Flight Safety Foundation.
Yeah, sure.
It was all about, where are we with SMS, especially now after COVID. What has changed through COVID, especially in the safety environment. Many discussions about, how can we improve the culture, safety culture in the organizations? What are we learning from those difficult 2 years, especially on the airline industry? Also, tech companies showed their products. So also we exhibited there. For us, it was really important seeing again our partners, where we have integrations with our applications, discussing new possible integrations. And of course, connect with the industry. As I said, we are pretty new here in North America with an office, meeting, the airline industry, especially here, because it was a pure airline event with more on the top executive level, but very interesting talks and very fruitful discussions, which we had. And a great event to be back. It gives me the opportunity traveling here to the US, meeting also customers, talking with potential clients. So it's a fantastic opportunity.
Very cool. And so what are some of the trends that you're seeing over the last few years with safety management and the technology? What trends are you seeing, whether it's in commercial or in the business side of things?
Definitely the trend is, as there is a lot about the discussions, how can we improve the safety culture? So how can we motivate operations personnel that they're filing safety information? Because of course we know people, or the operations personnel, pilots, they have their long duties, and we still have to motivate the people to take the time to share their safety related experience during the flight. So what we see a lot is the discussions, how can we reduce the burden for operations personnel to really file also the safety information, what they are experiencing during the operation. And based on that, of course, improving our safety management system. So what we do here a lot is really, we believe it is important. People have to file all these reports, fill a lot of fields, what was the departure, the destination, which aircraft was I on. And all this is information we have in other platforms, what the companies are using, no matter if I'm a business jet operator or an airline.
Mm-hmm.
So what we really see here is the growing demand that we can connect these tools. It was something traditionally we have done already in the past for our airline customers, mainly linking the system with their crew scheduling application. But just now we are finalizing an integration with our partner, Aviobook. It's an EFB provider out of Belgium. We thought, why should we take the data from the crew scheduling system, which might be already a few hours outdated when the crew member is doing the flight, and identify the safety issue? So we are getting more accurate data, what we can pre-fill the information, and basically making it much, much more simple for the reporters. So for anyone in the organizations, that they can share the safety information and also effectively provide them a feedback. Because as we know, if I file some report, I take the 10, 15 minutes eventually to file all this information, then I also want to know, what did the company do with my information? So this is a lot what we're working on, especially to improve here the safety cultures of our customers.
Yeah. So what I hear from a lot of operators, and over the past, in the past, if I'm a pilot, I have so much paperwork that I need to fill out, and I've seen where you have crew members that they know, hey, I have to fill out this pre-flight checklist, for instance. And a lot of the cases, they're just trying to get through that as fast as possible, right? There's a lot of redundant information. In the past, some of that was done on paper. Some of it required, having a laptop open, or, after a flight was completed, going back to the hotel and, completing these reports. So how has the technology changed to kind of streamline some of those functions? I guess there's a mobile component to it, the integrations. What are some of the pieces of data and kind of the new technology that's now part of this to streamline that?
Really, it is the integration with the existing infrastructure, what the customers are using. And as you said, I mean, it's time consuming. The crews might be tired after the flights, and for them, it's just another piece of paper they have to fill. And I think that's where we can do a lot with the technology, and that's what we see a lot. That also even smaller organizations now approach us and say, "Look, we use this and that application."
Right.
A lot of the data, what we want to see just as generic information in the report, we have populated there. So what can you do to link these systems? And as we also know, I think the trend for all the tech companies is all the products are now API based. So there is an effective way to exchange information between the different platforms. And that's what we see in the recent years, actually. So from any of the tools used, not just for the big airlines, but also really the tools that are on the market for smaller organizations have these API components. And then it's straightforward to connect it. So we just map the relevant data, what our customers are looking for, what they are requiring to have in the forms. to make it also then easier for the safety department. Because if I know that data, that the general data in the report was taken from a verified source, so any other application, cruise scheduling or the flight planning application, of course, I know I have the correct data, and I can focus on the content of the report, and the rest is mainly for statistical information. So the better we can connect these tools, and since all or the majority of the platforms on the market now provide these APIs, it's really simple for the providers to connect, actually.
Sure, for sure. And so you guys serve both the commercial
Yes.
market and the business aviation market. You have operational experience in both of those types of organizations. From a technology perspective, how easy is it to plug in your product to either type of operation? What's the overlapping capabilities and maybe some of the benefits that you can deliver from like the commercial space, maybe down into the business aviation space?
Definitely what we see is that, of course, the commercial space, they always, for any kind of these integrations, the first runners. So, of course, they have these requirements at a much earlier stage.
Sure.
So things we were required to connect 3, 4, 5 years ago, it was purely for our commercial side. But now we see also this demand from the smaller operators. So from our side, it's pretty straightforward. Our customers tell us we use software XYZ. This is what we want to connect with, and we just realized that. So it's not a big effort. So normally it's a week from a few days, maybe 2-3 weeks.
Okay.
Just discuss with the partners. So with the other providers, our customers are working with, asking for the API documentation, coordinating of course with the customers, which information do they require, and then just we realize that.
Sure. And so, inside of the application, with whether it's, the checklist or the reporting, how configurable is that to each individual operation?
We focus on it that we completely adjust it to all our customers individually. So it's not an out-of-the-box configuration where we say, okay, you only have this or that option. What our approach is, we really want to understand how do our customers work. We know we all have to comply with the same rules. We all operate under an AOC or as a 91. We still apply the same rules. But at the end of the day, every organization is different. Every organization has different requirements, and this is what we are looking into. So this is exactly from our side. We do not want to provide a solution, just standard configuration, live with it, or take another tool. We really sit together with our customers. We discuss their requirements, and also while they are working with the product, we want to be in regular contact here. We know organizations change over the years, and what was good 2 years ago might not fit today. And exactly, I think, especially in a quickly evolving environment like safety management, what we see at all these conferences, the system must be adaptable, and that the system must go with the trend, what is out there in the industry, and that's what we try to do for our customers.
Gotcha. And in regards to that culture, kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation, some of the things that were being discussed at the Air Safety Summit. What are the different ways that they're looking to kind of promote this safety culture? And I know, traditionally, as I thought about safety, it's always involving the pilots. And I know that there's some regulations that are, coming down the line and maybe in the next year or two to get maintenance more involved and engineering. What are you seeing in regards to that culture and spreading that to different areas of the organization?
I think it is, as you said, traditionally it's more a pilot. Pilots, I think, are more used to that, that they're filing safety reports. I think it's already in the training a lot. So if you're in the flight school,
Sure.
Sharing information. And what we traditionally see is that there is the motivation, let's say it in that way, from engineers a little bit lower. So traditionally, companies get less safety information from the maintenance side. But I think there's also a reason for it, because the engineers, anyhow, they have to fill their maintenance planning tools, etc., where if there's a technical defect, all of that is recorded in these applications. And of course, I understand the engineers. Why should they fill more or less the same information again in the safety management
Sure.
tool? And I think that's also the approach from the engineers a lot. We manage everything in our applications, what we have for the maintenance side, there's everything inside.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, again, here it is essential that the SMS application can talk again to these to the maintenance planning tools. And that's also integrations we have just completed with some of the products out there on the market that if engineers enter certain kind of defects, that this will be automatically pushed into the SMS platform, and therefore they don't even have to think about it. Is a safety report required? Yes or no? Because we built that into the into the technology, into the applications the company is using. Of course, everything what is human factors related. So I don't know. We have identified anything in a dual inspection. Of course, it is safety related information that would be still required from the engineers. But I think that this we can much more easily communicate to the engineers, build up better this culture. If the bulk of the information, just the hard facts, defect information, what is relevant to the safety management system, if this information is automatically pushed.
Sure. Of data that's being shared both around, safety data and culture and ways to promote safety. Is that happening in the business aviation side of things?
I think it can be still significantly improved, let's say it that way. But I think also the platforms are a little bit missing on that side. Still, I think here in the US, it is much, much better compared to what we see, for example, in Europe, that there aren't really open safety databases where you can find reporting information. Of course, here you have the advantage, for example, with NASA database, where you find shared safety information. But I think there's still a lot of opportunities out there, because if we think about it, we should do a risk assessment. Let's say we get a new aircraft type into the operation. So something what is completely new for our organization, and we should do a risk assessment on that. And there is, of course, always the question from the operators, where should I get the data from? How should I define a probability of a certain hazard that it may affect my organization if I don't have any historic data available? And I think there are also the regulators required to do more in that perspective to better provide the access to this kind of data. Of course, I understand it's always about data protection, where especially coming from Europe, we know we have very strict data protection regulations. But it's safety data. It's about improving aviation safety. So it's the benefit of the public if we guarantee a safer operation, if our operators have more safety-related data. So there are good industry initiatives. Of course, again, on the airline side, IATA IDX is definitely a good platform for that. What I heard is when talking with IATA that they also motivate business jet or executive operators to join, to provide their data.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, we all share the same airspace, of course. And I think there's still a lot to be done in the future. Maybe, organizations that can do something in that perspective. But I think sharing safety data is not important within the organization. We should do that in terms of our safety promotion. But I think it's also helpful to share within the industry such kind of data. And therefore, conferences like just this week in Atlanta is perfect. They openly are discussed about incidents and accidents that happened. What are the lessons learned? But I think it's also important to discuss more the incidents or the smaller events. So it's just simple occurrences that we know what's happening out there.
Sure. And so, you started the business in Europe and then expanded into Asia. Now you've recently opened up a Canadian office. What are maybe some of the obstacles that you're seeing getting into the North American market? And maybe it's, just maybe there's some cultural differences,
Yes.
some business differences, but I'm assuming there's also some regulatory differences between the different regions. What's that like?
Of course, there's the main difference is, of course, in Europe, we do not differentiate between 135 and 121 operators. In Europe,
Okay.
you're either commercial or private. There's nothing in between. It doesn't matter if you operate, let's say, a single citation jet on a commercial basis, or if you're Lufthansa with, I don't know, 300 large aircraft, you have to comply to the same rules.
Gotcha.
And this is, of course, the big difference. I mean, the audience knows it better than I do. Part 5 here in the US is currently only applicable to the 121 operators, but not yet to 135s, even if it's coming out soon.
Sure.
But based on that, of course, from a regulatory point of view, the executive and business aviation in Europe was required to implement SMS already in Europe in about, I think it was 2014. So we have nearly 10 years experience on that. And we have seen a lot of evolvement on that side. I think what is really much, much better done here in the US is to risk assess the single flight, so the traditional threats
Sure.
or flight risk assessments which are performed. This is something what we do not see that much in Europe. So that's USS, the airport. We categorize airports in A, B, and C airports. But this philosophy that you really go on every flight, you do a full risk assessment for each flight, this is something we don't see as rigid as here in the US. On the other side, in Europe, we look more on a corporate level, which risks there are. So we look about, within the organization. I think it's traditionally, Europe is highly regulated, sometimes
Sure.
over-regulated.
Sure.
But I think based on that, also the organizations are a little bit more complex of European organizations. And therefore, in Europe, we look a lot on a corporate level. Which risks do we identify? We are required by the regulator to have a full hazard list so that we can show, okay, these are the hazards we have identified. Which safety controls do we have in place? So it's really more on a corporate level, but not on the individual flight. And I think these are components we still can learn from each other. So the Europeans really how flight risk assessments are
Sure.
performed. There are fantastic tools out there in North America, I must say. And on the other side, I still think that the corporate approach is essential, that we are aware of our top risks, that we are clearly aware which safety controls are weak, where do we have to enhance the safety controls implemented. And I think that's really where we can learn from each other. And I think that's why it's also for us fantastic to see both sides of the Atlantic, what's going on.
Yeah, sure. It seems like a lot of the SMS that's been put in place in the U.S. has been driven more off of, these kind of certifications
Yes.
that are driven by third-party certifications over like a regulatory standpoint, right? And so I think that's probably one of the big differences between the U.S. and
Definitely,
Europe.
But it's also beautiful. I mean, it shows that the industry is kind of self-regulating.
Sure.
I think that's fantastic.
Sure.
I think that shows the importance of SMS because if it wouldn't be such an important element, why would Wyvern, Argus, Ispeo mandate it? And a big part of the industry is already fulfilling these things, and I think that's amazing.
Sure. And so where do you see safety kind of going from here? Are there, whether it's an advance in technology or regulations, where does it move from here?
I think a lot on the technology side. Again, what we see with the large operators, of course, it's about, large companies tend to get a few thousand reports by year, or the very large ones even per month. And it's also, somebody has to read this kind of information. And the dangerous thing is always that there is a safety information coming in. And simply because of the amount of information that is coming in and then the large operators, that a key information is overseen because it was not properly read or not properly understood. We want to work in future more in the artificial intelligence direction.
Sure.
We want here really to support, again, first, of course, the large organizations that we can not automate the SMS. It will always need the human interaction, but that we can better show to the users, let's say you got it yesterday, 100 reports, 95 statistical information. We know these scenarios. We link it with the proactive risk assessments that we have done. We understand which safety controls failed, so we can automatically populate the performance indicators, but there were, let's say, 5 cases where we have to focus on, which need the human interaction. Unknown situations, for example, where we cannot put it into the picture what we have already.
Sure.
Or the different information is coming together, which doesn't fit really what we know already in the industry, and that we have to take the resources on that, because I think that's one of the ways we have to go. And again, with all these information we learn with the big organizations, that step by step, of course, we can transfer that to the smaller organizations, because when we have these AI tools and when it knows already on a much bigger data amount that we have assessed, that we can support then also the smaller organizations and really tell them what are the highlights in general in the industry. Does the information they receive fit into that, or is it something unusual? And again, that you have to take the analysis here. So I see a lot of technology still to be developed on that side.
It seems like there's a big opportunity for real business intelligence to make its way into this space.
Yes.
And obviously, when you look at the commercial operators, a lot more data, a lot more moving parts, and maybe that will help in building those trends and passing them down into smaller operations for them to leverage. There's that data aspect of things and kind of collecting that information from flight risk assessments, from the crew management and scheduling tools, from flight planning. What about actually plugging into the aircraft itself? And I know that there's different feeds that could come off the aircraft. How does that play into safety management, and maybe today and then looking into the future?
Today, of course, where it's available, we take the data from the FOCA program. Of course, it is one of the most important data sources we have, because, of course, it's objective. It's recorded data. We still need, of course, the information from the pilot why certain things happen. That's why the interaction between the SMS and FOCA is a part of it, but that we can link the FOCA identified events with the reports, that's essential, but that's out there already today. For example, we connect with all the major providers for the FOCA programs. But I agree with you. I mean, in the future, I also see it like this, that we get live information maybe from the aircraft, and that we get this live information, what can automatically populate maybe safety reports in the future, and warn the crew member to say there is something unusual on the flight, and please file a safety report, and that we better trigger the crews immediately, and that we don't have to wait a few days, a few maybe hours or days, depending on the system, that there was an event, that we can better communicate and interact here with the crew members. And I definitely think that this will be a trend in the future, that we have to look into that.
Sure. And how do you guys have been growing over the last few years, and how are you navigating from a business perspective and a growth perspective? There's so many different, channels, integrations, data feeds. I guess, where are you focusing in on so that you're not getting distracted? Because I would imagine that's potentially a big obstacle for you, because development resources are expensive. It could be, take a lot of time to do these integrations. Where are you kind of, focusing your time and your resources in that growth?
What we have done about 3 years ago, as we know, software is a life cycle, and the software that is 10 years old, it's pretty old.
Yeah, sure.
When we started, currently the system is based on PHP because 13, 14 years ago, that was a standard development tool. About 3-4 years ago, we were sitting together in the management and said, where do we want to go in the future? And I said to my colleagues, wouldn't it be beautiful if we would have all the knowledge which we gained over 10 years and now start again with a blank page of paper and just build again the system. So initially, of course, it was like a crazy idea. No, because we have the customers. We cannot change completely the system, etc., etc. We took the decision to do it actually. Awesome. We are changing the complete development or technology. So we built the new system on Angular.
Okay.
With a new database structure. And actually we are releasing now in April the first component of the new system. So it will be our quality module.
Okay.
Really with the knowledge we gained over the 10 years, so now 13 and a half years, and to really build it from scratch. And we do that now from component after component. So first it's the quality part. The next one will be our reporting part. Then we are just releasing a new risk management module, but also here still in PHP technology. But this will then also come over to Angular technology, because with these new development tools, we also build the system now from scratch that it's highly integratable with other tools. So of course everything API based. We use the APIs for our own developments. To be able to increase the flexibility of configurations of the system, but really to support this type of better integrations. Also, as I said before, AI, definitely we will not develop that from our side. We will look out there for partners who have developed these tools already. But then again, that we just push our data in and get the information back through the APIs. So that's why I think this decision was so important for our company to say, let's do it again completely from scratch.
Right.
Of course, it creates certain burdens. Obviously, the customers didn't get so many new features in the last 2-3 years, but a lot of new functionalities are just coming out now with the new version. And but much nicer design, better interface, user interface. And further increasing the possibility to interact and integrate with other tools.
And it makes building new features much easier.
So much easier,
right?
Yes.
We've done that in the past. We're actually in another company doing something very similar right now. You always have the option of, okay, it's going to be a big project, so do we just continue to kind of, build upon and fix the older technology, or do you go all in and, build something from scratch? And so it's a big decision. It often, not all companies are successful in making that bridge, but I think if you start with you have a very clear plan on how you're going to do it and the process and the timeline, you come out on the other side in a much better place.
Definitely. To be honest, I was extremely nervous.
Sure.
And it cost me a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
And also, frankly speaking, sometimes, when we got another feature request, and again, the answer was, we have to delay it for, 6 months, 12 months. I often doubted the decision, but now since we are now that far as we are, we invested so much time, and we see now the results of the last 2-3 years in development, and all the research of what is the best technology and all these things. I'm so glad that we have taken this decision, and I really have to say also to my colleagues, our CTO and CEO. They pushed a lot in this direction, and I'm really glad that they pushed me in that direction. So it was a fantastic decision.
Very cool. And so I'd assume over the next year, a lot of your operational and development efforts are in trying to get as many of those features out on the new platform or new technology.
Exactly. And as you said, the development, once you know how to work with the new technology, and once you have this knowledge, then it's so much faster.
Sure.
So that's fantastic. And we also see it with our developers, how excited they are now with the new technology to work on. And of course, it's a complete new spirit, and that's fantastic.
Sure. It also helps, I think, in attracting new talent and growing the team, right? Because, whether you're in, service or sales, obviously you have a new shiny tool that you can show off. But then from a development standpoint, the devs typically want to work with something that's, the latest technology. They're spending their time building cool features, not necessarily tending to kind of older back ends and some of the problems with older technology.
You're not attracting a young student from university if you tell them, okay, now you do again PHP development.
Yeah, sure.
It's not that sexy for them.
Sure. Well, cool. I guess anything that you want to hit on in regards to, upcoming releases in the, towards the end of this year or into next year, events that you guys are going to be at, anything you want to mention?
Well, as I briefly said, in January, we bring out our new risk management module. It's a significant enhancement. We showed it already during our last user conference. We did a 2-day event in October in Vienna. Just this week, there was another user conference in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Okay.
And we do another one last week of November in Bangkok. So this new risk management module is coming out. And then Q1, we are starting to release the new quality module, as I said, in the new technology, new screen design and everything. So there's a lot of things coming out on that side. We continuously work on our apps to improve that. And presently a lot of integrations, new integrations. So that's what we're really pushing on to link with all the tools our customers need to have integrations. Shows or events, we had a lot of them in the last few weeks.
Sure.
I was traveling now basically more or less straight for 4 weeks. Dubai, Cologne or Germany, now the US. Next week I'm still in Canada. So that's it for this year.
Okay.
But next year you will see us again at a lot of events. The schedule is not yet out there, but if you check our LinkedIn profile,
sure.
And we are promoting it there where you can meet us again personally.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you making the stop down here and coming to chat with us and making time for us in your busy travel schedule. It was a pleasure to have you, and we'll talk soon.
Excellent. Thanks also to you. Thank you really for having me. I hope it was interesting for your audience, and can't wait to be back soon here in Florida. It's always nice to be here.
For sure. All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you so much.